Hi, in today's video, we are going to discuss about the microservices architecture. As we all know, building microservices architectures, understanding about monolithic architecture and all everything is, which is an alternate to the microservice architecture, wherein the kind of patterns which are relating to the microservices architecture, followed by the architecture patterns, which majorly addresses the issues that we'll encounter when applying these patterns and all that. So when we are trying to understand the microservices architecture, followed by the kind of collaboration patterns, all that, wherein there will be an saga which implements a distributed command as a series of local transactions. At the same time, there is a command line replica which replicates read-only data to the services which are implementing a command. Apart from that, whenever there is an API composition, whatever are we taking on, this implements a distributed query as a series of local queries. Now, when we're talking about CQRS, which implements a distributed query as a series of local queries, along with this, the kind of messaging and as well as remote procedure invocation patterns are basically two different ways that services can communicate. The kind of database per service pattern, which majorly describes how each service has its own database in order to ensure losing coupling. Along with this, if you see the API gateways, API gateway patterns, if you can see over here, API gateway patterns, which majorly defines how the client accesses the services in a microservices architecture, wherein we are trying to understand about client-side discovery and server-side discovery as well. At the same time, these are the patterns which are used to route request for a client to an available service instances in a microservices architecture, all that. Now, when we are trying to understand this from the context of the testing patterns itself is concerned, the kind of service component tests, what is that are we going to provide, and the kind of service integration contract test and all everything, which can be integrated with the service breakers, followed by access tokens, etc. Now, in order to understand this from the context of the observability patterns, all that, wherein we will be having log aggregations, different log aggregations and all everything will be there here. At the same time, whatever the kind of application matrix do we have, followed by this audit logging. At the same time, distributed tracing, exception tracking, health check APIs, all these things are essentially required in this. Now, when we are talking about UI patterns like user interface patterns, all that, this server-side page fragment compositions followed by the client-side UI compositions will also be there, wherein that single server per host and all everything are multiple services per host patterns. These are the two different deployment strategies where the cross-cutting concerns, patterns and all everything will be connecting to the microservice chases patterns and externalized configurations, all these in this regard. So this is what generally in whole understanding about microservices architecture, which people who are working in the field of application development in reference to the architecture mainly to understand it should have an understanding over. microservices followed by the API connectivity, which normally we do in regular intervals. So this is all about the video. If you have any questions, if you have any queries, followed by any kind of training needs in reference to the microservices, all that, please reach out to the contact details, which will be posted in below to this video. Thank you.